Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Valiant, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. His ship was huge, bigger than most cities back on Earth. The Valiant was the flagship of the Deathworld Alliance, and Jake was proud to command it. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. "Captain, we have the mission briefing ready," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Bennett from her tactical station. She was young but sharp, with eyes that missed nothing. Jake had seen her in action before and trusted her completely. "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The image of space disappeared, replaced by a holographic map of their sector. Red markers showed destroyed star systems, and Jake felt his stomach tighten. Each red marker meant billions of dead beings. "Sir, we have confirmed reports of 17 destroyed systems in the past month," Lisa continued. "Whatever is doing. This moves fast and leaves nothing behind. No survivors, no debris, nothing." Jake nodded grimly. The Deathworld Alliance had seen many threats before, but nothing like this. The Alliance was made up of the galaxy's most dangerous species, beings that other civilizations feared. Humans had earned their place in this group, not through superior technology, but through something else entirely. "Any word from the other Alliance fleets?" Jake asked. Communications Officer Amy Walsh looked up from her station. She had been with Jake for 3 years, and he had never seen her look this worried. "Sir, we lost contact with Admiral Hayes' fleet 4 days ago. The Korthax heavy cruiser squadron went silent yesterday. That makes 3 entire fleets that have vanished without a trace." The bridge fell quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. 3 Deathworld Alliance fleets represented thousands of the galaxy's most dangerous warriors. If they were gone, then whatever they were facing was beyond anything they had encountered before. Chief Engineer Ryan Carter's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, I've got the engines running at peak efficiency. All weapons systems are green. We're as ready as we can be." Jake smiled slightly. Ryan was the best engineer he had ever worked with. The man could make broken equipment run like new, and somehow always found a way to give them just a little more power when they needed it most. "Marine Commander Parker, report," Jake called out. "Sir, all Marine units are ready for deployment. We have full complements of humans, Korthax, Velani, and Threnody forces standing by," came the reply from Steve Parker. The Marine commander was a big man who had served in more battles than most people could count. Jake thought about his crew and the aliens who fought alongside them. The Korthax were massive reptilian beings with thick armor plates covering their bodies. They were born warriors who lived for battle. The Velani looked like giant insects, but moved faster than the eye could follow. They were perfect for quick strikes and precision attacks. The Threnody were the strangest of all, beings made of pure energy who could pass through solid matter like ghosts. All of these species had one thing in common. They came from worlds that tried to kill them every day. Deathworlds, the galaxy called them. Places where only the strongest and smartest survived. Earth was classified as a Class 12 Deathworld, one of the most dangerous planets known to exist. While other species evolved on peaceful worlds with gentle climates, humans grew up fighting. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and predators that could kill them in dozens of different ways. This harsh environment had forged humans into natural survivors. "Captain," Amy called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Alliance Command." The main screen switched to show Admiral Grant, the human leader of the Deathworld Alliance. He looked tired, and Jake could see the strain in his eyes. "Jake, I'm sending you the coordinates of the last known position of the enemy vessel. Intelligence suggests it's heading toward the Kepler system. That system has over 40 billion inhabitants. Across 6 inhabited worlds." Jake felt his jaw tighten. 40 billion innocent lives. "Sir, what do we know about this enemy?" "Not much," Admiral Grant admitted. It appears to be a single ship, but it's massive. Larger than anything in our databases. It destroys everything it encounters and seems to be moving in a pattern, systematically, eliminating entire star systems. Jake, I'm not going to lie to you. This thing has already taken out our best fleets. If you can't stop it, we may have to evacuate entire sectors of the galaxy. Understood, sir. We won't let you down. Admiral Grant's expression softened slightly. I know you won't, Jake. Remember what makes us human. We don't give up, no matter how bad things look. Earth taught us that the universe is trying to kill us every single day, and we're still here because we refuse to quit. The transmission ended, and Jake turned to address his crew. You heard the Admiral. We're facing something that has destroyed 3 Alliance fleets. The odds are not in our favor. He paused and looked around the bridge at the faces of his crew. Humans, Cortex, Hilani, and Threnody, all watching him with expressions of determination. But here's the thing about impossible odds, Jake continued. Humans have been facing them since we first walked upright on Earth. Every day on our homeworld was a fight for survival. Storms that could level cities, predators that hunted us, diseases that killed millions. The planet itself seemed designed to eliminate us. He walked to the center of the bridge. But we didn't just survive. We thrived. We turned those challenges into strengths. We learned to adapt, to think creatively, to never surrender no matter how hopeless things seemed. That's why we're here, and that's why the galaxy respects us. Lisa Bennett nodded. Captain, the crew is ready. Whatever this thing is, we'll find a way to stop it. Jake smiled at his tactical officer. I know we will, Lisa. Set course for the Kepler system. Maximum speed. Course laid in, sir, came the reply from the navigation station. Amy, send a message. To all ships in the fleet. Tell them we're going to face the unknown, but we're not going alone. We have our allies. We have our training. And most importantly, we have something that no enemy can take away from us. What's that, sir? Amy asked. We're from Earth, Jake said simply. And Earth doesn't raise quitters. As the Valiant and her escort ships jumped to hyperspace, Jake stared out at the swirling colors of the hyperspace tunnel. Somewhere ahead of them waited an enemy that had destroyed everything it encountered. But Jake Morrison had been born on Earth, trained by the Deathworld Alliance, and had never met a fight he wouldn't take. The stars ahead held danger and death, but they also held hope. Because humans had learned long ago that the darkest moments were when heroes were born. The Valiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and Captain Jake Morrison immediately knew they were in trouble. The massive enemy ship hung in space like a dark crystal mountain, easily 10 times larger than his flagship. Its hull seemed to absorb light, making it appear as a black shadow against the stars. My God, whispered Lisa Bennett from her tactical station. Captain, that thing is enormous. It's over 15 kilometers long and at least 5 kilometers wide. Jake stared at the enemy vessel through the main viewing screen. The ship's surface was covered in what looked like black crystal formations that pulsed with a faint red glow. He had never seen anything like it in all his years of space combat. Amy, try to establish communications, Jake ordered. Send the standard greeting protocols. Communications Officer Amy Walsh worked at her station for several moments before looking up with a frown. Sir, I'm getting no response. The ship isn't even acknowledging our transmissions. It's like they don't care that we're here. Captain, called out Chief Engineer Ryan Carter over the intercom. I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout that ship. Whatever it's planning to do, it's going to be big. Jake activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Morrison. Battle stations. Form attack formation Delta 7. Stay sharp, people. The Deathworld Alliance fleet spread out around the Valiant. There were 12 capital ships in total, each one representing the finest warriors their species could produce. The Korthax heavy cruisers moved into position, with their thick armor gleaming under the system's sun. The Velani destroyers darted between the larger ships like silver needles. The Threnody vessels flickered in and out of normal space as they prepared for battle. "Sir, the enemy ship is moving," reported Lisa. "It's turning toward us, and those energy readings are spiking." The massive crystal ship began to rotate slowly, bringing what appeared to be weapon ports to bear on the Alliance fleet. Jake could see dozens of dark openings along its hull, each one larger than his entire ship. "All ships, open fire," Jake commanded. Full weapon spread. The space around the enemy ship lit up with energy blasts, plasma cannons, missile strikes, and exotic weapons that few species in the galaxy could even understand. The combined firepower of 12 Deathworld Alliance ships was enough to crack a planet's crust, but something impossible happened. As each weapon struck the enemy ship's hull, the dark crystal surface seemed to absorb the energy and glow brighter. Within seconds, the ship's defensive systems had completely neutralized every attack. "Captain, our weapons aren't even scratching it," Lisa reported with disbelief in her voice. "The plasma cannons are being absorbed completely. The missile strikes are being deflected by some kind of energy field. Even the Threnody phase weapons aren't getting through." Jake watched in horror as the enemy ship's weapon ports began to glow with the same red light they had seen on its hull. "All ships, evasive maneuvers. Move, move, move." The enemy's response was devastating. Beams of red energy lanced out from the crystal ship, and wherever they touched, Alliance vessels simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not blown apart, but completely erased as if they had never been there at all. 3 ships vanished in the first salvo. The Korthax heavy cruiser Bloodfang disappeared in a flash of red light. 2 Velani destroyers were there 1 second and gone the next. Jake felt sick as he realized that hundreds of brave warriors had just died without even slowing down their enemy. "Report," Jake shouted over the alarms that were now blaring throughout his ship. "Sir, the enemy weapons ignore our shields completely," Lisa said, her voice tight with controlled panic. "They're not energy weapons or projectiles. I don't even know what they are, but they're cutting through our defenses like they don't exist." Marine Commander Steve Parker's voice came over the intercom from the Marine deck. "Captain, my boarding teams are ready if you can get us close enough. Maybe we can hurt this thing from the inside." "Negative, Steve. We need to figure out what we're dealing with first." The enemy ship fired again, and 2 more Alliance vessels vanished. The remaining ships scattered, trying to use speed and distance to avoid the deadly red beams. But the enemy's targeting was perfect. No matter how fast the Velani ships moved, no matter how the Threnody vessels phased in and out of normal space, the enemy tracked them flawlessly. "Amy, are you picking up any communications from that ship?" Jake asked desperately. "Sir, I'm getting something. It's not directed at us, but there's definitely some kind of signal coming from the enemy vessel." Amy worked at her station, her fingers flying over the controls. "Captain, I think it's analyzing us. The signal patterns change every time we try a different weapon or tactic." Lisa looked up from her tactical display with a terrible realization. "Captain, I think it's learning from us. Every time we attack, every time we change our formation, that ship adapts its defenses and targeting systems. It's not just fighting us, it's studying us." Jake felt his blood run cold. An enemy that learned from every attack, that became stronger with each battle. "All ships, cease fire. Stop all offensive actions immediately." "Sir?" Lisa asked in confusion. "If it's learning from our attacks, and every shot we fire makes it more dangerous. We need to think about this differently." But it was too late to worry about making the enemy stronger. The crystal ship had already learned enough. Its next attack was even more devastating than the first. 5 more Alliance ships vanished in a coordinated strike that seemed to predict exactly where each vessel would try to dodge. "Captain, we've lost 8 ships," Amy reported, her voice barely steady. "The survivors are requesting orders." Jake looked at the tactical display. Out of 12 capital ships, only 4 remained. The Valani Wing Commander's ship was heavily damaged and leaking atmosphere. One of the Korthax cruisers was dead in space with engine failure. His own ship and 1 Threnody vessel were the only ones still at full combat capability. "Sir, the enemy is charging up for another attack," Lisa warned. "Energy readings are off the charts." "All remaining ships, prepare to retreat," Jake ordered. "Jump to hyperspace on my command." But when the navigation officer tried to engage the hyperspace drive, nothing happened. "Captain, hyperspace systems are offline." "Not damaged, sir. They're being actively suppressed by some kind of interference." The terrible truth hit Jake like a physical blow. They couldn't fight the enemy ship because their weapons only made it stronger. They couldn't run because it had somehow disabled their ability to escape. They were trapped with an enemy that was impossible to defeat. "Captain," Amy called out urgently, "I'm detecting massive energy buildup from the enemy ship. Whatever it's about to do, it's going to be bigger than anything we've seen so far." Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Humans and aliens who had fought alongside each other through countless battles, who had never faced an enemy they couldn't eventually defeat. Now they were facing something that seemed to break every rule of warfare they had ever learned. The enemy ship's hull was now glowing so brightly with absorbed energy that it hurt to look at directly. Jake realized that this massive vessel had been playing with them, learning from them, preparing for something much worse. "All stations prepare for impact," Jake ordered grimly. "And somebody get me options. We're not dying here without a fight." Captain Jake Morrison called an emergency meeting with the surviving ship commanders. The holographic conference room aboard the Valiant filled with the images of his remaining allies. Commander Thrak of the Korthax appeared first, his massive reptilian form covered in battle scars. Wing Leader Zess of the Valani flickered into view, her insect-like features twitching with barely controlled anger. Finally, Collective Node 7 of the Threnody materialized as a shifting column of blue energy. "We have lost 8 ships and thousands of warriors," Commander Thrak rumbled, his deep voice filled with pain. "My people's honor demands that we fight to the death, but our weapons cannot even scratch this enemy. What do you propose, human?" Jake looked at each of his allies. These were beings from the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy, creatures that had never known defeat. Now they were facing something that made their legendary strength seem worthless. "Our traditional tactics have failed," Wing Leader Zess said, her rapid speech pattern reflecting her species' high-speed thinking. "We tried speed, precision, overwhelming force, and phase attacks. Nothing works. The enemy learns from every attack and becomes stronger." Collective Node 7's energy form pulsed with different colors as it spoke. "Our analysis indicates that conventional warfare is impossible against this entity. It has absorbed the combat data from 3 Alliance fleets and incorporated their tactics into its defensive systems." Jake stood up and walked to the center of the holographic chamber. "You're all right. Everything we know about fighting has failed, but that's exactly why we might still have a chance." "Explain," Commander Thrak demanded. "Think about why humans are in the Deathworld Alliance," Jake said. "It's not because we're the strongest or the fastest or have the best technology. It's because we come from Earth, a planet that spent millions of years trying to kill us in every way possible." Jake began pacing as his mind worked through the problem. "Earth taught us something that no other world could. When the normal rules don't work, you make new rules. When the old tactics fail, You do something that nobody expects. Wing Leader Zess tilted her head. What are you suggesting? The enemy. Ship learns from energy weapons, so we don't use energy weapons. It adapts to our attack patterns, so we don't use attack patterns. It expects us to fight like warriors, so we don't fight like warriors. Commander Thrack's eyes narrowed. Speak plainly, human. What is your plan? Jake activated the tactical display, showing the local area around their position. Look at where we are. This system has an asteroid belt with rocks the size of moons. What if we don't attack the enemy ship at all? You propose retreat? Collective Node 7 asked, its color shifting to what Jake recognized as confusion. No. I propose we use the one advantage Earth gave us that no other world could. We learned to turn our environment into a weapon. Jake pointed to the asteroid field on the display. That enemy ship is massive, but it's also arrogant. It followed. You's here because it wants to study us, to learn from us. What if we give it something to study that it can't learn from? Chief Engineer Ryan Carter's voice came over the intercom. Captain, I've been listening to the tactical discussion. If you're thinking what I think you're thinking, it's completely insane. Ryan, patch into the conference. Ryan's image appeared in the holographic chamber. Sir, the structural stress alone would tear our ships apart. And even if we could position the asteroids correctly, there's no guarantee that kinetic impact would work when energy weapons failed. Jake smiled grimly. Ryan, how many times have you told me that something was impossible, and then found a way to make it work anyway? The engineer paused. Well, sir, when you put it that way, the plan is simple, Jake continued. We use our tractor beams to position asteroids in the enemy ship's path. Not small rocks, but the biggest ones we can move. Then we detonate charges to send them at maximum velocity toward the target. Wing Leader Zess spoke up. But the enemy will adapt to kinetic attacks just as it did to energy weapons. Not if we do it right, Jake replied. Energy weapons are predictable. They follow the laws of physics in ways that can be calculated and countered. But a billion-ton asteroid moving at high speed? That's not a weapon. That's a natural disaster. Commander Thrack's eyes began to glow with something that might have been approval. Humans truly are from a death world. This plan is so dangerous that it might actually work. The risks are enormous, Collective Node 7 pointed out. Our ships will need to get dangerously close to the enemy vessel to position the asteroids. We will be completely exposed to its weapons. Then we don't give it time to target us, Jake said. We move fast, we move unpredictably, and we do something that no sane warrior would ever attempt. Amy Walsh's voice came over the communication system. Captain, I'm picking up another transmission from the enemy ship. The language is still unknown, but the patterns are different. I think it's trying to communicate with us directly. Put it through the translation matrix, Jake ordered. After a few moments, Amy spoke again. Sir, the computer has managed a partial translation. The message seems to be asking why we have not surrendered. It appears surprised that we're still fighting. Jake felt a cold smile cross his face. Perfect. Send a reply. Tell them that humans don't know how to surrender. Sir, what if it learns our language from the communication? Let it learn, Jake said. I want it to understand exactly what it's dealing with. As Amy worked to send the message, Jake turned back to his fellow commanders. We have one advantage that no enemy has ever been able to take away from us. We are too stupid to know when we're beaten. Commander Thrack let out what might have been a laugh. Human philosophy is truly unique. Very well, we will follow your mad plan. How do we proceed? Ryan, I need you to calculate the exact charges needed to accelerate the largest asteroids to maximum velocity. Zess, your ships are the fastest. You'll need to plant the charges and get clear before detonation. Thrack, your heavy cruisers will handle tractor beam operations. Node 7, Your people can phase through the asteroids to place charges in exactly the right positions. And what will the human ships do? Wing Leader Zess asked. Jake's expression became deadly serious. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to get between that enemy ship and our allies, and we're going to make sure it doesn't kill anyone else while you set up the attack. Captain, Ryan said quietly, the human ships won't survive that kind of exposure. The enemy's weapons will target you first. Maybe, Jake replied. But Earth taught us something else. Sometimes the most important victory isn't winning the battle. Sometimes it's making sure the right people survive to win the war. The holographic conference ended as each commander returned to their ship to prepare for the desperate plan. Jake stood alone on his bridge, looking out at the enemy vessel that hung in space like a dark promise of death. Lisa Bennett approached him. Captain, the crew is ready. We all know this plan is dangerous, but we trust you. Jake nodded. Lisa, if this doesn't work, make sure the galaxy knows what happened here. Make sure they know that the Deathworld Alliance never stopped fighting. Yes, sir, but Captain, what is it? I think this crazy plan might actually work. After all, we're from Earth, and Earth doesn't raise quitters. The plan began with promise. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Valiant as his ships moved into position around the massive asteroid field. The largest rocks were the size of small moons, ancient chunks of stone and metal that had been floating in space for millions of years. Tractor beams are locked onto target asteroid Alpha 7, reported Chief Engineer Ryan Carter. This one's about 2 kilometers across and massing roughly 4 billion tons. Jake nodded grimly. If their plan worked, that 4 billion tons of rock would hit the enemy ship at incredible speed. Even something that could absorb energy weapons might have trouble with that much kinetic force. Wing Leader Zess and her Villani destroyers darted between the asteroids like silver needles, their incredible speed allowing them to place explosive charges at precise locations. The Threnody vessels phased in and out of the rocks themselves, positioning charges deep inside where they would create maximum force. Charges are in place on asteroids Alpha 7 through Alpha 12, reported Collective Node 7. Detonation sequence is ready for your command. Commander Thrax's heavy cruisers moved into position, their powerful tractor beams grabbing hold of the massive rocks. The Korthax ships were built for strength, and Jake could see them straining against the enormous mass they were trying to move. Human ships maintain position between the asteroid field and the enemy vessel. Jake ordered over the fleet communication system. We need to keep that thing's attention on us. The enemy ship had been watching their movements with apparent curiosity. Its hull continued to pulse with the red energy it had absorbed from their earlier attacks, but it made no move to interfere with their preparations. Captain, I'm reading massive energy spikes from the enemy vessel, Lisa Bennett called out from her tactical station. I think it's beginning to understand what we're trying to do. Execute the plan, Jake commanded. All charges detonate now. Space lit up with brilliant explosions as the charges buried deep within the asteroids went off. Simultaneously, the massive rocks began moving toward the enemy ship, accelerated by the explosions and guided by the tractor beams of the Korthax cruisers. For a moment, it looked like the plan might work. 6 enormous asteroids, each weighing billions of tons, raced toward the crystal ship at tremendous speed. Jake held his breath as he watched the rocks close the distance. The first asteroid hit the enemy ship's hull with tremendous force. The impact created a spectacular explosion that lit up the entire system. For several seconds, the enemy vessel was hidden behind a cloud of debris and energy discharge. Did we get it? Amy Walsh asked from her communication station. The debris. Cloud cleared, and Jake's heart sank. The enemy ship was not only undamaged, but its hull was actually repairing itself. The crystalline surface flowed like liquid, sealing any cracks or damage almost instantly. "Impossible," whispered Commander Thrak over the communication system. "That impact should have cracked the ship in half." But worse news was coming. Lisa looked up from her tactical display with horror in her eyes. "Captain, the enemy ship has learned from the kinetic attack. It's using its own gravitational manipulators to turn the remaining asteroids against us." Jake watched in dismay as the enemy vessel reached out with invisible forces and grabbed control of the asteroids they had spent so much effort positioning. The massive rocks that should have been weapons against their enemy were now weapons pointed at them. "All ships evasive maneuvers," Jake shouted, but it was too late. The enemy ship hurled the asteroids at the Alliance fleet with perfect accuracy. The Korthak's heavy cruiser that had been providing tractor beam support was crushed by a rock twice its size. Two Velani destroyers were caught between converging asteroids and destroyed instantly. "Captain, we're losing ships faster than before," Lisa reported. "The enemy is using our own plan against us." As if the situation wasn't bad enough, Ryan Carter's voice came over the intercom with more terrible news. "Captain, the enemy's adaptive systems have begun interfering with our basic ship functions. Life support is failing on Deck 7. Artificial gravity is out on Decks 4 through 6. Even our engines are starting to have problems." Jake realized that their situation had gone from desperate to hopeless. Not only had their plan failed, but it had made their enemy even more dangerous. The crystalline ship had learned from their kinetic attack and was now using gravitational weapons they hadn't even known it possessed. "Marine Commander Parker, report," Jake called out. Steve Parker's voice came back immediately. "Sir, my boarding teams are still ready. If we can't destroy this thing from outside, maybe we can take it apart from the inside." Jake almost rejected the idea immediately. Boarding an enemy ship that could adapt to any attack seemed like suicide. But as he looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, he realized they might not have any other choice. "Steve, how many boarding pods do we have left?" 16 pods, sir. Each one can carry a full squad of mixed human and alien Marines." Jake made a decision that felt like signing death warrants for his best people. Prepare all boarding pods for immediate launch. If we can't win this fight with ships, maybe we can win it with boots on the ground. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "even if the boarding teams make it inside, what can they do? If ship-to-ship weapons can't hurt this thing, what chance do hand weapons have?" Jake looked at the enemy vessel on the main screen. Its hull was now glowing brighter than ever, filled with energy absorbed from their attacks. But something Amy had said earlier was bothering him. "Amy, you said the enemy ship sent us a message asking why we hadn't surrendered. Why would it care whether we surrender or not?" Amy frowned as she thought about it. "I'm not sure, sir." The translation was partial, but the message seemed genuinely curious about our behavior. "What if it's not trying to destroy us?" Jake said slowly. "What if it's trying to study us? What if everything we've seen is just an intelligence gathering operation?" Lisa looked up from her tactical station. "You think it's been learning our tactics to use against other targets? Think about it," Jake continued. "It could have destroyed our entire fleet in the first attack, but it didn't. It's been adapting to our weapons and tactics, but it's also been keeping us alive long enough to try different approaches." The terrible implications of this realization hit the entire bridge crew at the same time. If the enemy was studying them, learning from them, then every tactic they tried was being cataloged for use against the rest of the galaxy. "Captain, if you're right, then we can't let this ship escape," Amy said. "Even if we can't defeat it, we have to make sure it doesn't share what it's learned about human tactics with whatever force sent it." Jake nodded grimly. "Then we go with the boarding assault, but not to destroy the ship. We go to make sure it can't transmit what it's learned. Sir, that's a suicide mission, Lisa pointed out. Maybe, Jake replied. But Earth taught us something important. Sometimes the most important battle isn't the one you win. Sometimes it's the one you fight to make sure the enemy doesn't win either. Jake activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to attempt something that probably won't work. But we're going to do it anyway, because that's what humans do. We don't quit, we don't surrender, and we don't let the bad guys win without a fight. He paused, looking around at his crew one more time. Prepare for boarding assault. And remember, we're from Earth, and Earth doesn't raise quitters. Captain Jake Morrison was about to give the order for the desperate boarding assault when Communications Officer Amy Walsh suddenly looked up from her station with wide eyes. Captain, I'm detecting massive hyperspace signatures approaching our position. Multiple ships, sir. A lot of them. Jake felt his stomach drop. If more enemy vessels were arriving, the battle was over before it truly began. On screen. The main viewing screen showed space around them beginning to ripple and distort. Then ships began emerging from hyperspace, but these were not more crystal vessels like their enemy. Instead, Jake saw the strangest collection of ships he had ever encountered. Some appeared to be grown rather than built, with smooth organic curves and surfaces that seemed alive. Others were made of pure crystal but pulsed with warm golden light instead of the cold red glow of their enemy. The strangest ships of all seemed to exist only partially in normal space, flickering in and out of reality like ghosts. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, Amy reported, her voice filled with amazement. Sir, it's in perfect English. Put it through. A woman's voice filled the bridge, calm and confident. Deathworld Alliance vessels. This is Fleet Commander Joanna Mitchell of the Terran Confederation Deep Space Fleet. We have been tracking this harvester ship for 3 months. Maintain your current positions and prepare for coordinated attack. Jake stared at the screen in shock. Terran Confederation? Amy, can you get me a visual on their flagship? The screen switched to show a massive ship that was clearly human in design, but unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was sleek and organic looking, as if it had been grown in space rather than built in a shipyard. Captain Morrison, I presume, said Fleet Commander Mitchell as her image appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her 40s with short gray hair and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of someone who had seen the impossible. We don't have much time for explanations, but I'll give you the short version. Humanity's expansion into space took 2 different paths. Jake found his voice. What do you mean? Your people formed the Deathworld Alliance with other warrior species. My people went in the opposite direction. We explored the furthest reaches of space and encountered beings that exist beyond normal physical laws. As if to prove her point, the strange ships around the Terran Confederation fleet began to move in ways that defied everything Jake knew about space combat. Some passed through solid matter as if it wasn't there. Others seemed to attack from multiple directions at once. Captain Mitchell, what are those harvester ships? Jake asked. Scouts for something much worse, she replied grimly. They catalog the combat abilities of organic species and report back to their masters. Your reputation as Deathworlders made you a priority target. The enemy crystal ship had been motionless during this exchange, apparently studying the new arrivals just as it had studied the Deathworld Alliance. Now it began to glow even brighter as it prepared to engage this new threat. All ships, attack pattern Omega, Fleet Commander Mitchell commanded. What happened next was unlike any space battle Jake had ever witnessed. The Terran Confederation ships fired weapons that seemed to prevent the enemy from adapting rather than simply attacking it. When the crystal ship tried to absorb the energy, the weapons changed their fundamental nature mid-flight The alien allies of the Terran Confederation were even more impressive. Beings of pure energy passed directly through the enemy ship's hull and began disrupting its systems from the inside. Ancient machine intelligences attacked the ship's learning algorithms directly, preventing it from adapting to new threats. Captain Morrison, Fleet Commander Mitchell called out, "We need your help. The Harvester ship has absorbed data from 3 Alliance fleets. We need to prevent it from transmitting that information." Jake didn't hesitate. "All remaining ships, support the Confederation fleet. Marine Commander Parker, launch all boarding pods. Target the enemy ship's communication arrays." The combined assault was devastating. While the Terran Confederation ships and their exotic allies attacked from impossible angles, the surviving Deathworld Alliance vessels provided exactly what the battle needed: pure, stubborn determination. Marine Commander Steve Parker led his boarding teams through the enemy ship's corridors, fighting adaptive defenses that changed with every step. But the Marines had something the ship's intelligence couldn't understand or counter. They simply refused to give up. "Captain," Lisa Bennett reported from her tactical station, "the enemy ship's adaptive systems are overloading. It's trying to counter too many different types of attacks at once." Jake watched as the crystal ship's hull began to flicker between different colors, its surface rippling as if it couldn't decide what form to take. The vessel that had seemed invincible was finally showing signs of damage. "Fleet," Commander Mitchell's voice came over the communication system. "Morrison, your people are incredible. The Harvester can't adapt to beings who refuse to follow logical tactical patterns." Jake smiled grimly. "Ma'am, we're from Earth. Logic is optional." The battle reached its climax when Steve Parker's Marines reached the enemy ship's central core. Instead of trying to destroy it, they followed Jake's original plan: prevent the ship from transmitting its intelligence data. "Captain, we found the communication center," Steve reported over the radio. "But sir, this thing isn't just a ship. It's some kind of artificial intelligence, and it's been learning from every species it encounters. Can you stop it from sending data back to its controllers?" "Working on it, sir." "Ryan, I need you to walk me through disabling an alien computer system." Chief Engineer Ryan Carter's voice joined the conversation. "Steve, look for anything that resembles a transmission array. If we can't destroy the ship, maybe we can at least cut off its ability to report back." The next few minutes were tense as the boarding teams worked to disable the enemy ship's communication systems, while the space battle raged around them. The Terran Confederation ships continued their impossible attacks, while the Deathworld Alliance vessels provided covering fire. Finally, Steve Parker's voice came over the radio with triumph. "Captain, we've done it. The communication arrays are offline. This thing isn't sending any signals anywhere." As if it understood what had happened, the crystal ship suddenly stopped fighting. Its hull went dark, and it began to drift in space, like a dead hulk. "Mission accomplished," Fleet Commander Mitchell announced. "The Harvester has been neutralized." Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They had started this battle with 12 ships and hundreds of allies. Now only a few vessels remained, but they had won something more important than a single battle. "Captain Mitchell," Jake said, "I think we need to talk about combining our fleets permanently. If there are more of these Harvester ships out there, the galaxy is going to need every advantage it can get." Fleet Commander Mitchell nodded. "Agreed. The universe is a dangerous place, Captain Morrison. But I think it's about to become a lot more dangerous for our enemies." Jake smiled as he looked out at the combined human fleets and their diverse alien allies. "Ma'am, they're about to learn why Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, and why humans never, ever give up." The battle was over, but Jake knew it was just the beginning of something much larger. The galaxy's most dangerous species had just become even more dangerous by working together.